Here's the thing I hear from a lot of people building HR tech and work tech products. The idea is strong, the roadmap is solid, but the engineering, it can't keep up and suddenly you're behind. That's exactly the problem Harbinger Group solves. They work with HR tech companies and enterprise product teams to build, scale, and modernize platforms. And they specialize in integrating AI into your core product in a way that actually ships. Recruitment tools, onboarding, learning analytics, compliance. If it's part of the employee experience and it needs to be built right, Harbinger has seen it before and knows how to execute. If you're on the product or technology side of HR and you're building cool things, go to harbingergroup.com. That's harbingergroup.com.
RepCap is proud to support Punk Rock HR. We're B2B content marketing consultants that combine a journalist's curiosity with a marketer's creativity to tell clear human stories that connect. From strategy to execution, we partner with brands to turn ideas into thought leadership and get real results. Want to learn more? Head over to repcap.com.
My job disappeared in less than a year. Had I have called myself an AI native software engineer a year or 18 months ago, I would have been laughed out of the room, and rightfully so. This is where wagon wheel makers had more lead time than I did in this situation. I look at it in the situation of I don't know what's going to happen.
Hey everybody, I'm Lori Rudiman. Welcome to Punk Rock HR. My guest this week is Andrew Norcross. He's a friend of mine. I just love this guy, and he helps build engines that run the internet. What I mean by that is that he has been involved in software and web development for over 20 years, and he's worked on some really important brands and enterprise websites. But with the advent of AI, he's made some different choices with his career, and that's what we're talking about today. So if you want to know what's going on with someone who works in technology and has principles and is also fucking cool, sit back and enjoy this conversation with Andrew Norcross on this week's Punk Rock HR. Hey, Norcross, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh my God, dude. It's weird that I've known you for so long and you've not been a podcast guest, because I feel like in almost 2 decades, we're homies and you belong here. So I could go on about how great you are, but before I do that, why don't you tell everybody who you are and what you're all about?
All right. Well, my name is Andrew Norcross, down in Florida. I've been down here pretty much my whole life. I have been a software engineer for about 20 years now, and at least until very recently. And before that, I worked in finance for about 10 years. Yeah, I've got a son he'll be 19 in August. And yeah, I've done a whole lot of stuff in the software world, primarily with WordPress. I've founded and ran an agency. I've worked as a product developer. I've led teams. I've been an architect. I built NASA's website, among others. So it's been, I've touched pretty much every aspect of that part of web development.
When I think about your early career, you had some really strong wins. When you think back to when you started getting involved, and especially in building websites and building some of the places where we go even today, what are you most proud of?
I'm proud that I was able to do it on my own terms, honestly, because code, websites, whatever, those are inert. They're just things. They show up, they go away. Some stick around for a long time. Some are there for a week. A lot of the stuff that I built that I would be the most proud of is because I was able to pull off something clever and weird that wasn't really supposed to happen. And it's all behind the scenes. And you would never know because the thing just does what it's supposed to do. I like to build things. I like to solve puzzles. I've been playing with Lego since I was a little kid. Still do it now. I build, I'm halfway through building a greenhouse outside. I've built quite a few. I like, give me something to do with my hands, whether it's a keyboard or a hammer. I don't care. That's just kind of where my brain goes.
You're a builder. You said that. And I've always known you to be a handy guy building something, but right now you're physically building more than you're conceptually building websites and things on the internet. So what's going on with your career, man? What's happening?
So to some degree, I don't know. And that's an interesting point to be at because, yeah, again, you've known me and for folks that do, or, they see some of the pictures and whatnot where it's like, yeah, like I'm covered from neck to, fingers and tattoos. Like since quarantine, I've got a nice biker beard, hair's down past my shoulder blades, but I've taken my professional career very seriously. My reputation very seriously. And it was like, yeah, that might be rough around the edges, but like I'm good at what I do. And the job as I performed it, for the most part, doesn't seem to exist right now. Again, I've worked on enterprise level sites. I've worked on very large, New York Times, GitHub, NASA, Disney, like a whole bunch of very large media, high traffic, high everything. So that's the tier that I've been working at for quite some time. And they don't want somebody to build that stuff anymore. They want AI to generate it for some reason and then have somebody review it and push it out the door because that's allegedly faster.
Well, I mean, let's stop right there. Whether it's faster, whether it's better.
Well, it's not better. Like that's unequivocally, like that is easily proven. It is not better than an experienced person.
I want to talk about like why we're at this moment, because I can look back to, capitalism, right? But I can look back to the early days of like when I knew you in the late 2000s, right? In the first decade of the century. And I had stupidly, all these high hopes about the potential and the promise of technology. And through every goddamn step of the way, I have been disappointed. So like we're at this moment and it's shocking so many that humans are being pulled out of the workforce. And yet I saw it coming and I was complicit. Were you complicit too?
I mean, yes and no, because honestly, what could I have done? And I was not in a position to do things. Now, funny enough, like I'm a history buff. Like that was my favorite subject in school. I barely passed math. My mom was an English teacher, so like grammar was fine, English, but like history. I love history. Like what is happening in technology is not new. Anything that we've gotten has usually been used for negative reasons most of the time. Like we built boats first to figure out how to get someplace and then pretty soon how to blow something up somewhere else, Gun manufacturers, they make that's what they do. That is the purpose of a gun is to kill something. Like that's technology and it's getting better allegedly. So I don't think it's unique to see what's been going on the internet compared to how technology has been adopted. Because we're human beings, like we're feral, like we're not nearly as advanced as we think we are.
No, for sure. And yet there's still a kernel of hope, I think that so many of us have, that this time will be different. This time we'll build on the small 1% wins of humanity. And I'm not talking about nirvana. I'm not talking about like recreating some heavenly like state. But I actually thought like we could make gains and actually make a difference with some of the ways that we can communicate at scale, the ways that we can see one another's lives regularly. And I saw your life regularly, you see mine. Like there was just all this promise. And to wind up at a place where, again, you have the oligarchs of America running and ruining things and sucking the human capital out of the workforce. It's just sad.
I mean, we did that with factory. I mean, we did that with the Industrial Revolution. Like that, we took people off farms and we put them in factories. And then, the people that built stuff by hand, all of a sudden were pulling levers, and we've done that, like there's a level of optimization and automation that's good. You're talking about, like we can now communicate at scale. I'm not sure that's a good idea. Like the results of doing that have not been positive. What it's done is allowed people to feel as though they have 1,000 friends. And I'm like, you don't. That's not possible as a human being. People that feel that things are not safe in a lot of places, like, no, you're just aware of every little thing that happens now. It used to be if you didn't live there, like, remember the Elian Gonzalez stuff? Like, I was in Florida. I knew all about that because that was happening right down the street. It then became national news like a week and a half later. So nobody else knew that was happening until it became national news. Now you'd know about it before they got on the coast. So, there's just, the speed and velocity in which information moves. Like, we can't think that fast.
Yeah, we can't. And yet, there is still this hope that the technology would enable us to, go deeper with empathy and go deeper with connection. And that, I think, proves true, like locally in a community at times. Like I'm connected to some really great people who believe in what I believe in, and we come together and we celebrate those things.
Come together.
Yes.
See, there you go. The technology the technology may have made it easier for y'all to get connected initially because you wouldn't have had those interactions otherwise. But that's the only positive the technology brought to that situation. It was y'all being human beings in the same place, which the internet discourages, actively discourages. Like people talk a lot about third spaces, and those are harder and harder to come by. And the internet is part of the reason why. And, we say, shoved in our phones. Like every person who has a phone has their face shoved in their phone. Generation doesn't matter. Class doesn't matter. None of that matters. Like if you got a phone, your face is probably shoved in it.
Hey, this is William Tincup, and you should know about the You Should Know podcast. It's a topical, fun podcast with Ryan, myself, and a guest, or guests plural sometimes, and we tackle the most timely topics of the day. Give it a look, give it a listen, and subscribe. Thanks.
It's not only generation and class, it's also an international phenomenon. I just came back from running a marathon abroad, and then we took a few days and we traveled, and it was like, you're right. Everybody's an influencer. Everybody has a story to tell. Like this idea that humans are storytellers is true, but you're not a storyteller to the masses. Like you're an anecdote relayer to your families.
Yeah. The way it should work is the bottom level has a whole lot, and everything as it moves up now requires skill and talent or experience or whatever the case may be. And then that gets smaller and smaller. So again, there's a reason why I'm not, in Hollywood movies is because I am not a trained actor in any way, shape, or form.
Well, the internet will convince you otherwise. That's for sure.
Well, that's the thing is I can get the equipment, I can film something, I can distribute it, I can self-publish, I can do everything that would qualify me as that. But it used to be that you had to have skill and talent to do those things. And now you just have to have money.
Well, you have skill and talent for building websites and really thinking in a strategic way about what resonates, what works, what's right, what's true, what's rooted in good taste. And yet you're not really working. So let's get back to that because what are you going to do?
So I don't know, because here's the thing. I avoided AI. I put it to the side.
Wait. Did you avoid AI because isn't everything AI?
Oh, no, I turn it off at any given chance. If I have to use it, I find a different product. I have used ChatGPT once without even being logged in. I have no accounts with any of these people. I have none of their apps. I have none of their anything. I did it in the browser in a private window because I did not want any, and I just needed to do it real quick to prove something that I was working on. Obviously, the browser itself, when I do a search, will spit out stuff certain times. Usually, did it the other day. It gave me 2 functions that didn't exist in the code base that I was working with. I'm and I didn't even ask for it. It was just a regular Google, and I just wanted to be real helpful. So it's here, do this. And I was like, well, this is very well formatted, commented, the whole 9 yards. But it included 2 functions as part of an API that did not exist. And I'm looking at it, and I didn't know that because I didn't know that code base super well. So I pulled it in, and I'm looking at it, I'm getting a bunch of errors, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. This is not because I've done something wrong. It's because it's asking for something that isn't there.
Yeah. So you're not using AI at all. Okay. Can you work when you don't use AI?
Done it for 20 years.
Yeah, but can you work in today's economy?
Based on who's, again, here's the criteria. I don't even have the opportunity right now. So, I don't miss deadlines. I never missed deadlines. I was able to do all of the entire underlying architecture for NASA.gov without any AI. It was just showing up, and it was garbage at that point. A junior person on the team used it, and you don't need to know anything about code to know that it put a different language It put language A into a file for language B, and they are in no way compatible. And it said it worked just fine, because that's the thing, is it always thinks it did it right, and it can't really learn. And I know that, a lot of cheerleaders are like, oh, well, I'm like, no, if I'm spending 2 hours trying to craft a prompt to a black box to get an answer, and thus I'm not learning anything, I still don't know how that works. Like, I could not wrap my head around the idea of shipping software that I didn't have a hand in actually writing, because how am I going to answer questions to it? How am I going to fix it when something inevitably goes wrong? Because as we know, software always works in production, never a problem. Yeah. So it's like, why, again, it's just everything about AI, and that's just as a functional tool. Like, I think it has good uses at some point. It's way too early for it to be a commercial product. We got another chat bot. We don't need more chat bots. And frankly, the thing that bums me out the most is that it's like 8 technologies in a trench coat. And like machine learning, that stuff is really cool right now. There's not a lot of consumer level need for machine learning. Probably never will be, which means they can't sell it to anybody. So we got a chatbot. Language processing. You and I don't need that stuff for the most part. The problem is a lot of the use cases for the technology we're seeing does not have a sexy or easily sellable avenue to it. So we got a chatbot.
We have 2 problems with the economy. Well, we have so many problems with the economy right now, but one is this desire to reduce cost and improve productivity, right? This is the push. And the second is this degradation in the belief of human talent. And AI is taking advantage, I'm using air quotes here, this AI movement is taking advantage of both. These pressures to say, we've got to get costs down and we've got to produce more, and also humans can't compete. And I guess when I hear this from executives, my question is always why? Why do you believe this, right?
Because they're beholden to shareholders, 100%. They're increasing profits every year. They don't need to cut costs. They need to make shareholders short-term happy. Again, having a 10-year in finance, I was a fiduciary asset manager. I had $2 billion under assets before the 08-09 crash. And that's when I left that industry, because I'm like, this place is not for me anymore. And so I'm like, all of this AI stuff looks, walks, and talks like subprime. And now here's the funny thing. Are these executives willing to pay for what it actually costs to use this AI? Because it's all incredibly subsidized, just like all the other VC stuff. The problem is they're never going to make their money back. Remember how Uber was $5 for a drive, and now it's, a price that it honestly should be? Quadruple your AI costs and tell me that it's saving money.
Well, this parallel to, the subprime industry, the markets, the crash, all of that, and it's just so fascinating to me because you've seen it now from both angles. So you walked away from finance after the 08 crash. Are you walking away from this pyramid scheme at this point in your career, or are you willing to say, I can still carve out meaningful work that's not degraded? Like, can you still do important work that matters, even though a lot of this is built on a house of cards?
So here's the thing. Like, everyone talks as though AI is inevitable, and it's not. It's absolutely not. None of these companies make money. None of these companies are even close to making money. The way the math doesn't math, and the amount, it's pockets of money that just keep getting moved in a circle, subprime. It's being financed, it's highly leveraged debt, subprime, and there's no backstop to it. The difference is this isn't human beings living in homes. Like, thankfully, this will there'll be some carryover, but when this stuff blows up, because financially it has to, there's just simply not enough money in the financial system to back what they say needs to exist.
But wait, Norcross, they keep creating money in the form of different crypto packages.
Money isn't real. Like, we all know that. Yeah. Money is an agreement, and that's fine. But using basic monetary policy, crypto doesn't count.
Yeah.
Because there's no country with a healthy, until Germany takes crypto, it's for laundering money and selling drugs. That's all it's ever been for. That's all it ever will be for, is laundering money and selling drugs.
So wait, can you do work in an industry? Can you make things on the internet if the internet is so...
I mean, I still do a little bit of stuff. I have a couple, like one or two small retainer clients that I've had for a long time. I still get reached out. People have, not recently, because again, people are like, a lot of people don't have money. I mean, like part of this is like agencies aren't hiring. There's just not a lot of work to be done. And some of that is absolutely due to AI. Some of that is just due to the larger economic situation that we're in right now, where it's like, yeah, I had to fill my truck up yesterday. It was $5.39 a gallon. Like it was $99 to fill my tank. And yes, I drive a full-size truck because I'm also a handyman. And I do a lot of truck things.
And I want to talk about that because while you still have a desire to create and to build on the internet, and we need you, especially when all of this AI stuff collapses around us or the energy costs become too insane to keep justifying the use of AI, you will be needed. But until then, you're building shit in the real world. So like, what are you doing? How are you doing that business? What's going on with that?
I'm in Florida, and we have hurricanes here, if you're not familiar. And with the insurance market, which is also a complete catastrophe, there's a lot of folks that need home repair done that is not necessarily contractor level. Like I'm not running new circuit boxes. I'm not, doing anything like that. But
yeah, we know you could, but you're not.
I don't have a license for that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like certain things like that, like plumbing, I can, for the most part, figure out. It's not that big of a deal. It's a pipe, what direction and what type. All right. But, electricity is like, oh, you could die if you do that wrong. So that's kind of my line where it's like, if I make a mistake, do I have to redo it? Or if I make a mistake, do I have to check, what is the cost? Yeah. What is the cost of a mistake?
Are you going to the ER? Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah. So you're doing your handyman business. Is it a business? Is it just like referral? How's this all working?
I mean, it's all been referral so far, but again, like between like my parents are in their 70s and like they need certain kind of work done that's a little bit more than, hey, come over and pitch in. It's like they need their house painted. It's like, I'm gonna go paint their house next week. Another friend of mine, their house got flooded in 2 hurricanes. So they finally, the insurance aspect of it just finished up. They just moved back into their house back in February. So, which is quite a while. That was a year and a half. It was getting permitted. There was all this stuff with permits in the city of St. Pete. It was just the whole city flooded and they weren't ready for it. They weren't ready for the administrative aspect of the city flooding. Like they took care of it from a logistics and like people standpoint, but then they're like, oh, wow, we need to write 500,000 permits for drywall.
Wait, if only we had AI for that.
Yeah, then you would end up with a bunch of permits for materials that don't exist.
Right. So you're dealing with the stuff like post-complex administrative hassles. You're like dealing with the things that can be fixed within your capability by going to the Home Depot, getting equipment.
Yeah, like I already have a huge set of tools. Like I've owned a home for 20 years plus. So I've also had to do home repair. Like I fixed some siding on somebody's house. I hung a new set, a closet in somebody else's house. I just finished building about 80 feet of fencing.
Hey, this is Brent Skinner, host of Small Talk Window here at the Work Defined Podcasting Network. Have you ever wanted a short podcast to listen to during a coffee break of your workday? You've come to the right place. My guests dispense with the small talk as quickly as possible and settle into a meaningful conversation around the world of work.
So you're doing all of this. Does it fill your truck? Because this is like the myth that we tell the kids these days. Don't go to college, go to trade school. Like, what do you think about all that?
Do what you don't want. Don't chase a paycheck. You're never going to be happy if you're chasing a paycheck. We told people to learn how to code. Bad idea. There's, people say, oh, go to the trades. Like there's a lot of people who physically cannot do that work. Again, like I'm 45 years old starting doing this and I've got a long history of sports and other injuries. So I'm like, it's not the, like I have to build in recovery days for myself. And like, I got a compression sleeve on right now for my elbow. It's like, it's a real thing. Like it's hard work. And depending on where, like I live in a place that doesn't really get cold, which is nice. It gets real hot, which is not. You got other places where stuff freezes. It's hard work. Yesterday I left the house at 8 o'clock in the morning. I got home at 8 o'clock at night. So it's definitely something where if you have that kind of, if that's the kind of thing that interests you, like again, my son is, starting junior college and he's looking at the electrician's program. That stuff interests him. He loves art. He's a music kid. He's got 5 or 6 guitars now, and so he's been like rewiring guitars, rewiring his fixing his amps, that building little pedals and stuff like that, sound modifier stuff. So it's like he had, that's something that he would like to do. He already has that proclivity to do that. It's like, all right, cool. Figure out a way to be able to support yourself. Don't pick something because it pays well, Like that happened with software for a long time. And my thing was, people ask me, how do I get into software? I'm like, if you have to ask, then you're probably not cut out for it, because you would have already figured that out because you want to do this.
I'm listening to you talk and I'm like, heck yeah, I agree. And yet for me, college was the single differentiator between a life of poverty, quite honestly, and a life of wealth. Anybody in my family who can pay for health insurance went to college. I don't know how else to say this, right? And not health insurance, but like owns a home, has hobbies, right? All of this is driven around whether or not this person went to college or not. And those who didn't go to college still really struggle and really suffer. And so I throw that out there.
I think that a lot of that is going to be just bias to the people that and the people, you went to college, other people that went to college. It took me 10 years to get a 2-year degree, and I barely scraped out with that. I backed into white collar jobs without having, the paperwork. And, so again, I got to kind of be on both sides of that, where it's like, no, there's plenty of people that are doing just fine. And they got a high school diploma and they're doing just fine. They're not, and I know plenty of people who have college degrees and they're living in poverty. Like,
oh, for sure. Yeah.
Because again, we did the same thing where you're like, you have to go to college. Do you have any interest in learning? Doesn't matter. Go to college. So what do? They jack tuition 400%. So then you ended up with a whole bunch of people leaving college, not feeling any more confident about what they were doing than when they started. And now they got 50 grand in debt. Or with my son's mother, 170,000 for law school.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I also think that there's this myth that we have to be happy with what we do for a living. And you kind of talked about this a little bit where you said, if you chase a paycheck or you chase a job, it won't necessarily make you happy, right? You have to figure out what you like. But what if you just don't like to work? And I think that's kind of where I've become comfortable in my old age, acknowledging, hey, I have to participate in this labor-driven economy, but I like my hobbies. I like my time off.
And that's what it should be. It's one of those things where if at all possible, don't stay in a field or job or role that you hate.
Right.
That's the thing is like, I'm lucky, and I felt this for a long time, that I was very lucky that software was something that I was able to do and it paid well. And I liked to do it. I did it for free. I had a whole bunch of open source stuff. I've released free software for the majority of my career. So it was never I would have done that anyway. And so it's one of those things where, don't get into a career that you hate, but also remember that there should be a finite amount of work you're willing to do to make somebody else more money. I'm like, I will give you a solid 40, but that's it. You're not, unless you're paying for more of my time, you're not getting any more of my time. Yeah, it's the only thing I can't make more of.
Norcross, I want to get back to this idea of your career, because I think you're like a lot of people out there where you have standards. You have things that you will and you won't do. You still have a lot of years ahead of you to be productive and to contribute and to make the world a better place, air quotes. What are you going to do? How does this look for you? I know you're in the unknown limbo right now, but you have some control. So how are you putting yourself out in the world right now?
I mean, I didn't know that I was going to do this. And I definitely didn't know that I was going to do this for 20 years. I think trying to answer that question and not just letting it organically happen is how a lot of people end up in situations that they really wish they weren't in. So it's one of those things where I got to pay my bills. I got to pay the mortgage. I got to take care of all that. So I don't have the luxury, obviously, of just kicking back and being like, I'm semi-retired. It's like, no, I never made that kind of tech money. So, what does 10 years look like? I don't know. My job disappeared in less than a year. Had I have called myself an AI native software engineer a year or 18 months ago, I would have been laughed out of the room, and rightfully so. So this is where wagon wheel makers had more lead time than I did in this situation. So I look at it in the situation of like, I don't know what's going to happen. And, software is a much different field than it was even 5 years ago. Yeah, a lot of these tools can spin up little basic websites and they're fine for most people. Like that's part of it is not every, like most people don't inherently need the level of stuff that I've been building, especially the last 10 years of my career. Like that's not what most people have any need for whatsoever. Like, I have tools in my garage that a lot of people don't have because they don't need them. And I've only bought tools once I felt comfortable using them and actually having a need for them. But yeah, like I have I've got table saws that'll rip your hands off, saw singular. But I didn't get that until I felt comfortable and confident that I could use that.
All right. So I think about, okay, you've got this career, you don't know where it's going to go. Are you on LinkedIn these days? Like, what do you?
Yeah, for the humor of it, for more than anything else. And yeah, again, like it's got all my stuff there. Because again, like there's a couple ways this ends. Like the AI, it's not sustainable in the situation that it's in right now. Regardless of where it goes, it is in no way sustainable. So either it totally just falls over itself, is gone, shows back up in 5 years the way that it should have initially, which was very specific, very tailored, most people don't need this kind of stuff. Like I see plenty of uses in like medical research and like it can synthesize data incredibly quickly. It looks for patterns. It's a pattern recognition machine. It doesn't think. It's not intelligent. Like this is the pedantic part of my mom being an English teacher. Words have meaning. Like it's not intelligent. It has it's a pattern recognition machine.
I want you to go deeper on that because I think there are a lot of people out there who think that today's AI supersedes human intelligence. They really believe that.
No, and it never will because there's no machine that could ever account for the chaos of the human mind. Like we are the most unpredictable species that has ever been documented in history. Like nobody can figure us out because we can't figure ourselves out because we do things that are not in our best interest. We will make choices that are inherently wrong and we know that they're wrong when we're making them. Like animals have a fight or flight syndrome, like reaction that is actually tailored to their environment. We just get anxiety because there's actually nothing to fight.
Wait, we have a fuck around and find out tendency, at least I do. I'm like,
that's our state motto. That's my state motto. So.
Yeah. It for sure is. But like, it's a bad choice. I'm going to make it anyway, just to see what happens, right? So you're right. I mean, the human brain is endlessly complex and also stupid at the same time. So, all right. So you're not really looking for jobs on LinkedIn, but if people want to work with you, what are you doing to make sure that people know you exist?
So the majority of my career, like I've never had to advertise in any of the careers that I've ever had. I mean, when I worked in finance, I was all taken care of. But when I started, doing WordPress work way back when, and this is back in the early days of Twitter, I had a little search column in TweetDeck, because that's how old this sentence is, for the hashtag WordPress help. That's it. That is the one thing I did. And then it just went from there. And again, it's all word of mouth because that's always the first thing you do when you need something is you first ask your friends. Then you go looking after that. If you need work done on the house, like, are you just going to open up an app or the, Google search? Like, no, you're going to ask someone like, hey, who did your drywall work? Do you have a drywall person? Do you have a, whatever person? That's how that always works. That's how that's always worked. I have, so I'm fine with that. So like, I don't hide, like I'm on the internet, like I don't do a lot of social media because most of it, like, again, I won't go anywhere near Twitter. Like it's just a right-wing cesspool. Like I don't honestly respect people that are still on that side at this point. There's no reason to be there. Just leave. And like, I got rid of Facebook in 2010, I think. So like my family still lives near me. They've seen my son grow up because I brought him over there all the time. They don't need the pictures. I didn't go to a college that had it, so I didn't get on there that early. And I'm just like, find me. Like, my name is a domain name. I'm not hard to find. Like, if I wrote keep in touch in your yearbook, that number is my parents' number, and it's still good. The area code changed, actually, but other than that, and you would know that knowing the area. So it's like, you can still get a hold of me. Like, I'm not hard to find.
You sure can. You wrote "Keep in Touch" on my heart many years ago, and we have indeed kept in touch, and I'm so grateful for it. I'm glad to be like a witness to your career and your development, even though it's kind of weird right now. Like, I'm rooting for you. I believe in it.
A lot of it comes back to, like, I actually enjoy what I do. Like, there's a
Yeah,
level
you
of
do.
craftsmanship to it. And that's the way I've always felt about it. And it's if I do it right, you have no idea. You only know if I did it wrong because it doesn't work. Again, all the stuff in the house. If I do it right, you just see a nice wall or a fence or whatever. If I do it wrong, you're like, look at that wobble. See that bubble, that crease over there? Like, you'll see that crease every single time you walk in that room. So, the level of doing, that craftsmanship to it, and writing code, way more fun than reviewing code. And if nobody wrote it that I can ask, why did you do this? Nobody can learn. Like companies are going to be screwed in about 2 years when they have all of this, because it generates more code than people actually would. It might work, but it's not necessarily optimized or written well, highly performant. It has no idea what else is running in the environments that you're putting it in. 2 years, a lot of this stuff is just going to start falling over, and they're going to need to pull some A-team stuff to fix it. So that's what I mean. Like, did I leave software? No, it kind of pushed me off to the side for right now. Because, I won't use AI to build things, which means enterprise, large companies, they're still like, we need that. That's the only way this works. And I'm just like, no, you could just make less money as a CEO and tell your shareholders that you're a long-term value stock and don't start paying a dividend and don't worry about short-term gains.
Unacceptable to the marketplace, Norcross, and you know that. But listen, in 2 years, your phone's going to blow up.
Maybe. And again, by that point, I might be happily not doing this anymore and be like, yeah, good luck with that. I have no idea. Remains to be seen.
My hope for you is that you keep that really good, loose attitude and that you can still fill up your truck. That's the most important thing.
Because again, it's like I wake up and see what happens. There's really no reason to try to set all these hard and fast rules like this is what's going to happen in this number of times. It's like that never happens, ever. At no point have I ever made a plan at that length and it ever happened even remotely close to what I thought it would. So I stopped doing it.
I love it. Why plan to throw the plan away? That's what I hear.
And it's one of those is this financially a great decision for me to do right now? Absolutely not. Is it difficult? Absolutely 100%. This is hard work. But I know that I'm on the right side of history. And I get the opportunity, I was given the opportunity to pick one and I'm like, no, I'm not going to. And I'm like, yeah, it's absolutely privileged that I can pick up a hammer and I can still do other things. I'm still absolutely fortunate that there are people, that I do smaller jobs for still, and I'm able to do that. But yeah, I feel better. I might go to sleep sore, but I know that I'm not putting money in Elon Musk's pocket or Sam Altman's pocket. I'm not poisoning places like Memphis, Tennessee. I'm not helping companies lay off my peers so they can juice their stock a little bit. I feel better about that. Even if it's making my own life a little more difficult, that's not a big cost, ultimately.
Andrew, it was really great to catch up with you today. Thanks for being a guest on the show.
You're very much welcome. Thank you again for having me.
Hey, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Andrew Norcross. When I think about the discussion we just had, a couple things stick out to me. Number one, Andrew reminds me of a younger version I was back when I met him. I was optimistic. I was hopeful. I thought the internet could be used for good. And he tried to disabuse me of that notion in this conversation. But yet, after all these years, he and I are still connected. So there's something really interesting and important and kind of beautiful about the internet that I'm not willing to let go of. And I hope you aren't either. The second thing is that the theme of authenticity was so prevalent in this conversation. Andrew mentioned that he's covered head to toe in tattoos and that his hair is long and he has a biker beard. But I don't think that's authenticity, and I don't believe that he believes that either. What he's got are a set of values and principles that drive his decision-making. And he doesn't waver from that. So even when the economy is tough and decisions are difficult,
He knows who he is and who he isn't because he's put some thought into that. And that's a really important lesson for you. I think the third thing that sticks out to me is that Andrew is weird. I'm weird. We're all weird, but he's not weird in one thing. And this is a theme I hit on over and over again in my own career, that if you're all in on one thing like your job, that one-dimensional aspect of your personality just is gross. Andrew is very good at what he does. He's great at building the engines that run the internet, right? He's great at building websites, but he can also build a home, and he also is really great with dogs, and he's a dad, and he's got all these other aspects to his life that make him a full and complete person. And I think, if you want to be happier and you want to be able to weather the storm a little bit better, you need to be more than one thing. And Andrew is definitely that. Punk Rock HR is produced by RepCap. They're a B2B content marketing agency who help organizations tell clear human stories that connect. Whether you need strategy, customer interviews, or full production support, RepCap turns complex ideas into compelling content that moves business forward. Learn more at repcap.com. Punk Rock HR can also be found on the Work Defined podcast network, along with hundreds of other work-focused shows. To listen or learn how to advertise, head on over to workdefined.com. That's WRKdefined.com. And finally, if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you stream it. It really helps the show. Now that's all for today. I've got some advice for you. Be safe, be kind, and don't sell out.